Good evening. Welcome to Worldwide Ministries, and this is Generational Blessings, a division of Worldwide Ministries. Tonight we're going to be discussing part 2, outline 2, part 3, and it reads as follows. His branches shall spread, and his beauty shall be as the olive tree, and his smell as Lebanon. Hosea 14:6. Part A, the olive tree, which is the oldest tree. Okay. Oleaceae, which is the olive family. Olea europea, the olive produces edible fruits and is a source of cooking oil. Evidence indicates that the tree, 20 to 40 million years ago old, now considered the Eastern Mediterranean basin, later was cultivated 7,000 years ago in the Mediterranean. Monounsaturated fatty acids such as olive oil reduce the total cholesterol level by about the same amount as polyunsaturates, but mainly they reduce the level of damaging low-density lipoproteins, or LDLs, while they leave a protective protective high-density HDLs nearly untouched. Other foods are cashews, pecans, Brazil nuts, regular margarine, and vegetable oil shortening. Now, those are saturated fatty acids. They're solid at room temperature, and they're found mainly in meat. We're going to look at that a little more. Excuse me. Now, the polyunsaturated fatty acids usually are liquid at room temperature, found in corn, sunflower, cottonseed, and coconut and palm are high in saturated fatty acids. So the corn, the safflower, and the cotton seeds and the sunflower are the polyunsaturated, and the coconut and palm are high in saturated fatty acids. Other sources are walnuts and margarine. Margarine, which is not good for you. Now, we're going to go back to Genesis. All right. If you go back to the flood, before the flood, excuse me. If you go back to before the flood in the book of Genesis, you have polyunsaturated and monounsaturated. It was only a vegetable-based diet. So the lifespans back then were, enormous. And also, I believe there was a generational blessing on the people that God had placed on them to have them live a really long time. After the flood, Noah was given permission that man could have meat, and the lifespans did decrease. The only person whose lifespan was long at that point was Noah's son Shem, who had a special blessing on him, and we know Jesus came from the line of Shem. Now, I believe that Noah probably ate only clean animals because God instructed Noah on the ark to bring the clean animals on the ark in sevens, male and in females in twos. Then he also instructed him to bring the unclean animals on the ark in twos, the male and the female. So I believe that the laws that came from the dietary laws in the book of Leviticus and Deuteronomy came about saying that you could only have the clean animals to eat, excuse me, and the unclean animals that we should not eat. And we have discussed in outline 1 the consequences of eating the unclean animals, which man later found out it just wasn't really any good for you. Example, pork has worms, shrimp have a lot of cholesterol. Everything God said don't eat became a problem to man. And he said you would be cut off, and I believe that man does get cut off It might be a slow process, it might be a fast process, but eventually you get cut off if you keep eating the wrong foods, and we know that's through different diseases. Okay, next we're going to take a look at the saturated fats in a little more detail. Saturated fatty acids, as we said before, are usually solid at room temperature, and they come mainly from animal products. Coconut and palm oil are also high in saturated fat. Now, because they're not animal products, I'm sure that they're not going to be as bad for you as the animal products are. Also, you know, we all know coconut's good for you. Coconut drinks are being used for hydration now. So, you know, coconuts are just good. It's a natural product. Also, we're going to look at grapeseed oil, other oils. Now, grapeseed oil is an essential fatty acid rich in omega-6 oils, and which is an essential oil, no cholesterol, no sodium, and it does not produce any free radicals. Let's see. We're gonna look at the slippery elm tree. No, wait a minute. Let's do flax seeds next. They're rich in the omega-3s, and then you have your fish oils, your omega-3s, and your primrose, which is gamma-linoleic acid. Slippery elm tree is another tree that's a favorite tree of mine. Slippery elm trees are good for when you can't hold anything on your stomach. I've used it myself when I was told that I might have gastric esophageal disease, and I used slippery elm, and I couldn't hold any food on my stomach. I kept throwing up, or I'd wake up like very early, wee hours of the morning, and I would throw up. And I started making a mush with slippery elm powder, boiled water. I'd stir it up, and I would eat that. And after a few days, immediately I could keep food on my stomach, but after a few days I was able to eat bananas and bread, and I built up till I could eat food. I lost quite a bit of weight. Now, also, a friend of mine, I gave them slippery elm for their daughter. She was told by the doctors they couldn't do anything to help her. She was throwing up. She started using it. She got completely all right, went on to enjoy her life. There was a cancer patient. Someone called me up. I recommended slippery elm because they were throwing up. They couldn't hold any food down, and they got all right too. Now, slippery elm, we're going to look at this a little closer. Slippery elm works on your mucous membranes, and when you eat it, it's soothing to the mucous membranes. Next, we're going to look at, let's see. Wait, let me just go over this real quick, a little deeper, like I said. Slippery elm, some of its medicinal properties is mucilaginous, demulcent, nutritive, diuretic, which promotes urine. Now, a mucilaginous works on mucous membranes, demulcent soothes, protects mucous membranes. Nourishing, used as a food, powder, and I told you some examples of when I've used it and recommended to other people to use it, and incredible results. I just thank God for that plant, that tree. Now, we're gonna take a look at grains. No, sorry. Let's look at the book of Revelations first. Revelations 22:2. Now, I'm just going to turn to that really quick and read that to you. I know it's not on the outline, but it's just something that I really wanted you to have. So we're just going to add that in right here, and I hope that you enjoy it. Book of Revelations 22, verse 2. Okay. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. Now, if you look at this tree in the book of Revelations, we know as far as I know, we're not there yet. And Jesus gives us this tree. We know that we don't have that tree as far as we know of. And the tribulation hasn't come and all of that stuff. So when Jesus gives us the tree with the 12 different fruits, it's going to have a healing for the nations. But I do believe right now, we don't have that tree, but there's still a healing for the nation, excuse me, with the trees and the herbs and the fruits and the vegetables that God has given us. And just want to look at some of the problems that we have. If you pick a fruit, look, a tomato is called a fruit. I know a lot of people say it's a vegetable, but anyway, if you pick a tomato and it is not vine ripened, it hasn't had a chance to get all of its vitamins and nutrients and phytochemicals. So what has happened is that a lot of times tomatoes are gassed to make them turn red, or vegetables to make them turn green, so you kind of get an empty food. Now, this leads into what we're going to talk about in part 4, which is grains. We're going to look at grains. And the scripture will be, give us this day our daily bread, in Matthew 6:11. Oh, and I mean, we really need that from God. Matthew 6:11. Okay. Give us this day our daily bread. All right. Looking at grains. When grain is refined, and we're going to talk about brown rice versus white rice, wheat flour versus white flour. When grain is refined, it removes the nutritional content. This process, ironically, is called refining. This process removes phytase and phytic acid needed for binding iron, calcium, and zinc. The result is a loss of some minerals to our bodies. Whole grains contain the entire seed except for the outer layer or hull. This is not edible anyway and is discarded. Refining of a grain began in the United States around 1910. This enrichment program consisted of adding thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, and iron to try to bring the grain back up to its original content to a degree. Excuse me. Calcium and vitamin D were optimal. 17 other minerals and vitamins removed are not replaced during the milling process. So it's stripped and then some are added back. Thus included, okay, these are the ones that are not added back. That's vitamin B, B2, niacin, B6, pantenoic acid, folic acid, vitamin E, choline, minerals, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, sodium, chromium, iron, cobalt, copper, zinc, selenium. So this is what's happening. And it's been happening. Okay, so the valuable minerals and vitamins are given to the animals, cattle, and hogs. Bread and grains, Ezekiel 4:9. thou also unto thee wheat and barley and beans and lentils and millet and fitchets, and put them in one vessel, and make thee bread thereof, according to the number of days that thou shalt lie upon thy side. 390 days shalt thou eat thereof. So these are some of the ancient grains that I'm going to be discussing a little later. Right now, this is just a briefing of what's going to come. I hope that generational blessings has been a blessing to you, and I just, thank God for the things that He's put on this earth for us, because as we know that God wishes above all things that we prosper and be in health, even as our soul prospers. And I pray that you all will too. To God be the glory. Thank you. Bye.